Good morning, everyone, members of the committee, public and staff. Welcome to the hearing for the Greytown picture. Please ensure that your devices are either switched off or on silent mode whilst the meeting is in progress. If the cell phone interrupts the course of the hearings, we will stop and wait for the device to be muted. This meeting is being held in the supper room of the Waihinga Centre in Martinborough Town Hall. It has been live streamed and will be available to view on Council's YouTube channel. And we do also have various members of the public and Council accompanying us online. The emergency exits for this room are the door you came in and the door behind me here. If we do need to evacuate the building, please use one of these exits and assemble outside by the playground, which is at the front of the building. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. In the event that we experience any unruly or intimidating behaviour during the course of the meeting, we will adjourn until it is safe for us to reconvene. Members of the council or committee and staff will congregate in the office area behind me if it's necessary. We will start the meeting with opening karakia. Everyone could join me, that would be amazing. Kia ora, whakapapa whanau te wana. E ura iwi mata tātou ki whanau nei. Aroha atu, aroha atu. Wonderful. Attendance from the other and attendance from the I believe, and possibly late attendance from Ireland. Do I have a mover to accept our apologies this morning? Councillor Gray and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bosley. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, no. The motion is carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare this morning? That being the case, we will move on to that. Good morning. We will now move on to the hearing of citizens. And please, over on this side, Martin. And please welcome Graham Gray to the table, please. While Mr. Gray's submission is located in page 202 of the report, and as the first submission in the insurance today. Mr. Gray, you have 10 minutes to speak to us this morning. It is suggested that you make your presentation during the first 5 or 6 minutes so that we have 3 or 4 minutes to ask questions from the councillor at the end. Your allotted time includes both your presentation and questions. Your time starts whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a privilege to be able to come and talk. As the recording played out in the last 12 hours or so, people would have, obviously other submitters would have realised not going to be an opportunity. So I find that very disappointing. Not being able to actually have it confirmed until about 9:30 this morning. The other thing I find a little disappointing as well, I think just I asked the question, this is a Greytown matter. Why is the hearing not held in Greytown, which was then the Greytown public, and hear the presentation. So I'll start with my presentation. I don't agree with either 3 of the options. I find it disappointing that there's only a serious situation we're faced here, that we're just given 3 options. And has there been any other work done in the other options? I know by the plan that there's been identified sites, And as a long-time resident, I know that they were just there on the plan. So the investigation actually had been done. And also, there's actually been no actual drilling or anything like that done to identify these 3 sites be suitable, apart from history from local residents. But I disagree with the Memorial Park. That's our Memorial Park, and I find that it's a great South Memorial Park. Community did. I'm very strongly against the well that's there now. In 2005, I think it was, and went ahead. And I would ask any resident now that does agree with it, do they have any connections to any of the fallen that are listed on our memorial cenotaphs? The other one is a very concerning one. If a well is put in the location that's been recommended there, there is going to be a real issue with the camping ground. I've already spoken to the camping ground manager, and his response to me is if there's any anything towards that will affect his business, the council will be facing lawsuit. So I'll move on from there. All those 3 options don't give Greytown security of supply. They all come out of the same water, groundwater supply, underground water supply, aquifer, and they all will feed off the same power supply. So if you had one in the park, one in Scooter Fitty Street, the other one, or either in the main shed, power goes out, you've got no power because they come off the same power. So at the park meeting, I asked to Wellington Water that, so what is the supply up from Woodside? And they said it's not adequate. It would not be supply suitable for sufficiently to supply Greytown. I said, so what's the other option? Oh, we'll have to get them tankers. Oh, you've got 3 reservoirs up there. How many are working? I knew full well there was only 1 working. And he says, oh, we're only using 1. I said, why aren't we using 2? Why can't we supply the second one with Greytown? The other one that's been mentioned, which is a very common system, and that is putting a boost pump in the line down to Greytown. It's apparently very inexpensive, and it's a system that's used very commonly. That's never been looked at. Currently, and has been operating since 2001, there is the dumping of our water supply from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. 7 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning goes straight into our sewer ponds. Our treated water direct from the pump now at the baths goes straight out into our sewer ponds. I won't tell you how I found that out, but I did raise it when I was on the community board in the last term, and nothing had been done about it. I raised it at the park with Lawrence and with Stephen, and Stephen said he knew nothing about it. Lawrence admitted that it happened. And he admitted it happened since the 2000. I find it disappointing as a long-time resident that Greytown residents over the years paid for the infrastructure benefits at Woodside, and we get no benefit from it. It's no use to us at all. Where else am I? Done the really good work. So there was the talk about Greytown having to fund whatever, and as a target rate. Very disappointing, as the infrastructure's already been paid for by Greytown. That's why we've got to pay for it a second time. So I fully support visiting what is needed to supply Greytown from Woodside. And I know there's an issue with the size of the pipe that's in there, but I believe it wouldn't be too expensive to run the second pipe in a straight line from the reservoir straight down through that hook up the top end of Wood Street, follow the line of the river bank, and do a straight line straight at the top of Wood Street, instead of having to follow the road around like the current one does. So, yeah. So I'm open for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you for your presentation, Graham. Are there any questions for
Thanks, Graham. Just reading through your submission, you haven't made any specifics. You've obviously said that you disagree with all three options that were consulted on. Can I just perhaps reinforce the point that you made about an inline pump effectively supplying water into Greytown? Do you think, I mean, I'm not sure if you're qualified to answer this, but you think that would boost the water pressure enough to feed Greytown in the future?
An engineer has told me, yes.
Boost the pump.
Yeah. And that's a system the fire service uses all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, probably even this morning. I know they had a call out right in this morning. I know where they're gone. I know what it was. And I wouldn't be surprised if they had used it, put in against the pump. It's just a common system. Yeah. Very inexpensive. I've been told by an engineer. Yeah.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer and then Councillor Wood.
Okay, great. I just want to question you on the use of Memorial Park issue. And so I'm a veteran myself and understand the comments that have occurred from the community. I was really interested to know whether you think that our past soldiers would find using the Memorial Park for the benefit of all the community by the provision of water as a good use of that park, or do you think they would find it offensive?
I've had that said to me, yeah. And they probably would be different opinions. Some would agree that, yeah, they would find that because they'd see it, yeah, we're getting our water supply. But when the water supply that we've had in the past is still there, why do we have to go and put another well down and all the infrastructure down in our memorial? And there is other options.
Yes.
Okay.
I did question also, well, I said it was up, but I did also question Lawrence, where would the pipelines go? And how long ago was it? About 3 years ago, they had to realign the water main to take it away from the sewer that was within the car park. And he admits it'll end up either crossing twice and going alongside the sewer line again. So you're back to that situation where you have the risk of contamination.
In seconds, so you've got fastest question.
I agree with that comment. Anyway. So yeah, just like what Colin said, you've said none to all three options. Did you have any other options you thought about?
Yes, Woodside.
Which I just
upgrade,
up pressurised, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Second reservoir, boost the pump,
One of my
or another line straight down to Woodside.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your submission, your presentation this morning, and your multiple responses to our questions.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Graham.
Presentation this morning is from Neil. Welcome, Neil. As before, you have 10 minutes to present twice.
Yeah.
Got all of that? Make yourself comfortable, and when you're ready, Amy will give you a signal that you've got about 1 minute left. So watch over this way.
Thank you. Now, those who've read my submission.
The page number for submission is 189 to 191, or is the second submission in today's hearing. Sorry to interrupt. Please.
Thank you. As you would have seen in my written submission, affordability is most important to my considerations, but alongside of that is the necessity to increase the reliability of our water supply. And it seems from the three options that we've been offered by council, and I'm not going to limit myself just to those three, but the preferred one is the Salt's Memorial Park option. It provides the quickest resolution of the risk that we have for the ageing infrastructure that's already there. It seems strange to embark on other options when they're less certain technically and financially, in other ways that they may not be as viable, finding a site, finding one with access, all the rest of it. Significantly longer delays would apply to the old Borough Council yard and even more so to the Kurrasfiti Street area option. We don't want to delay. We've got a problem with supply that could be at risk of some kind of failure. Then we might have to rely on this adequate line that already feeds from Waihini. It's not sufficient at the moment for providing pressure for firefighting. These aren't my understandings other than what we've been told from councils, staff and Wellington Water. So I take all these things on board and push them back to you. If they've identified that there's no adequate supply for firefighting except from the current bore's risk of failure, then we've got to do the quickest job we can to get that resolved. Salt's Memorial Park option does that way in advance of the other two options. It also avoids problems that might arise if we use one of those other options. For example, if you put all this infrastructure on the old Borough Council yard, that precludes it being used for something else in the future. It ties up that site, and I think that would be a shortcoming. The previous speaker spoke of other options, and I was disappointed that the options that we were ending up with were very similar. They borrowed water from the same effective source underground, okay, in different sites, but it's the same kind of water. What about the option that was used for Featherston? The line was, and I asked this at the end of mine, I know I can't ask questions other than rhetorically, but they've got a line similar to the line that feeds into Greytown from Waihini. They then have a reservoir or bladder, and again, I'm only using these terms that were provided by Wellington Water. They have a reservoir there around the low pressure problem that we keep on being told was the problem with the Waihini to Greytown line. It's there, it provides water, but not at sufficient pressure to be useful, particularly for firefighting. Featherston seem to get around that by having a reservoir. It makes sense. Dribble the water in, fill up a reservoir, pump it out when you need it. Can't we do something similar in Greytown? Was that never looked at? I don't know. It just seems we've got the line there. All we haven't got is a pump and a reservoir. I'll leave that for you to answer rhetorically when you want to talk amongst yourselves. What else can I say? The current site, although there are sensitivities with it being a memorial park, in my mind, a memorial that serves the needs of the community, swimming baths, camping ground, whatever it might be, adequate water might be one of those. And it is at the moment, and why shouldn't that continue? Are we proposing to rip out what's already there to return the pristine memorial to what some people want? I don't know. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. So I don't think getting a second board to provide resilience to the current situation in any way diminishes the memorial nature of the park. The impact on users of the park, well, activities during construction could be done midweek so that the park's not quite as busy. People are there, obviously, but the busy times are when the sports and the mainly cricket, soccer, whatever they might be, that's when there's large numbers of people around. I'm sure the construction can be done around that and minimise the impacts. What else can I say? Rating, the targeted rate. Well, I guess if we go for the minimum option, which was what the Salt's Memorial Park option was described at, being the lowest cost option, it was not going to require anything other than a district targeted rate. So I would support that. I don't know the financial dealings, but that seems to be a good way to do it. Going to the other options, not only increased delay, increased costs. They're all going to cost a lot more, and significantly, they could be open-ended. We don't actually know how viable those options are yet. We can work that out, but that's all delays, added costs. Then you've got to have a different rating structure, which I don't agree. That's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Constance, do you have any questions for me on this?
Thanks very much.
No questions, so thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Cheers.
Very clear and concise presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, just at the side, I do agree with oral hearing rather than this online stuff.
Yes, so do I. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, our next presentation is impact. This submission is on pages 167 to 168, or it is the third submission in the agenda today. It's parallel as everybody else.
Yeah.
Minutes, and Amy will give you away from just 1 minute left, just to let you know. Thanks.
Okay. Water is absolutely essential to life, and it should be treated with far more respect than it's being treated with. And I find it quite frustrating that we collectively don't treat it with the respect it deserves, and that our water supplies are sort of ad hoc, not well thought out, never maintained, run to failure, and then suddenly we have to have a hurry to talk about it. And I find that extremely frustrating. And then I look at South Wairarapa and I see that there are 3 towns, 2 smaller communities that this council supplies, and it's funded by 11,811 people in the last census, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. The other thing that doesn't make sense is the parochial nature of this town has got different needs to this town, and we shouldn't share our water with this town because they should get their own. We're a community. We should be looking at the best option for our community, and I don't believe what has been presented has been thought out well. I understand from the helicopters that were going around with the big things to see where the aquifers were, whether that information has been put into this, if we're looking for long-term solutions to water. And water should be at the top of the pyramid, not somewhere down there where everybody says, oh no, as I saw in the paper this morning, restrict the rates to 3%. But you've got failing water infrastructure. You can't do that. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm just saying to you, the whole thing here is confusing. It doesn't make sense. And I think that if you're looking, that we need to be serious about water. I find it quite fascinating that billionaires are sending rockets into space to look for planets with water. We have it here. We have it in our community, and we need to preserve it. We need to look after it. We need to share it, and we need to do that collectively. And a small town servicing as much as it's servicing doesn't work, doesn't make sense. So I think you need to seriously look at your water model. Now, for the submission, I've looked at Memorial Park the last couple of years, and I've gone through a whole range of emotions, from pure anger at the disgusting mess, that abomination of a plant that takes up the car park, that I think it is so disrespectful in a memorial park, the way that it's been done. But I understand it had to be done because nobody had bothered to turn around and maintain the things properly, so you had fresh water. So this is what you get. You get an abomination of shit in a beautiful setting. And it makes me angry. I'm still angry, so I haven't gone through the whole range of emotions. I'm stuck on anger and frustration. So I don't believe that using Memorial Park in the way that it's being used is respectful to those men who gave up their lives for a collective good, for a common good. They were there doing it for a collective reason, to keep us safe and to have us a better life. And the people who built that park were thinking collectively, how can we look at our future and look after each other and have a bright future? And I think that that's what we should be looking at with our water, a bright future, a different way of doing it. And then I see, oh, we've got this piece of land in the middle of town that we wouldn't even discuss when a beautiful proposal was put up for a hotel and restaurants and seating areas, outdoor seating areas. The council wouldn't even look at it, wouldn't even discuss it. And now you're going to put an industrial, talking about putting an industrial water plant there in the middle of our beautiful town. I think, how dare you? How short-sighted. That's just as annoying as Memorial Park. And the other two things that really annoy me about these two sites, these are industrial sites. There are chemicals on these sites. There is trucks going into these sites. There are workers on those sites. There is maintenance that has to be done. And these are public places. And this is not keeping our public safe. And I think the men who went off to war and that we built a memorial to honour them would not be too impressed with the way that we're looking at our community. We're just looking at, oh yes, the dollars will do that. Yes, the dollars will do that. The dollars don't mean anything. I think, and I put in my submission that the cost at number 10, it is the last thing you should be looking at. You should have aspiration, looking up there, what will solve this problem? Not just for Greytown, but for Featherston, for Martinborough, for Pirinoa, for Lake Ferry, and for whatever comes in the future, because we don't know, because I've been here 21 years and it has grown substantially since I arrived. There was no White Swan. It was a derelict petrol station. I have seen this place grow, and when I was looking at the statistics, it's grown 25% and 24% in 10 years. And we've come to a sudden stop because nobody has invested in the infrastructure. We can't ship in this town anymore because the ponds are too full. We can't drink water in this town anymore because we haven't looked after it. So I'm saying to you, your job as councillors is to look forward, to raise your vision and have an aspirational water and wastewater and stormwater plan. And not only just have the plan, implement the plan, have planned maintenance with your plan, have planned growth in your plan. And to those people who say, oh, just keep the rates at 3% or don't give it to Featherston, I say to the ones who say, don't give it to Featherston, do you go to Featherston and have a cup of coffee? Do you use the toilet, the loo in Featherston? And if you do, because I'm sure you do, because we're so mobile and aware of it, do you pay a contribution to Featherston for the use of their infrastructure? I bet you don't even think about it. And for those of you who say that we've got to just keep the money down, stop thinking about that. Think about what would be best and what will work well in the future. Think about our future. That's what those soldiers that we are remembering in that part did. They thought of the future. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mayor Connolly and then Councillor Woodcock.
Thank you, Carolyn. I had hoped you might have elaborated a little more on the very last sentence in your submission, where you talk about, you obviously have some concerns about chemical deliveries.
When your water doesn't just come out of the ground and go to your tap through a pipe. It has to be treated. It's treated with chlorine. Chlorine is a dangerous chemical and it has to be respected. I think that there's other chemicals that they use in the water treatment plants, soda ash, potash. We don't have fluoridation here, unfortunately, because I would like to see that, but fluoride is a hugely dangerous chemical, and if the government imposes that responsibility on you too, then that chemical has to be managed well. And also, I don't think the sites are secure enough. You know, with it, because you do have chemicals on those sites. They're stored there because they have to be used there, and they have to be delivered there. And the waste chemical containers have to be taken away from there. And I look at the swimming pool in particular, and I see young children walking around there. And, you know, it's their place. There's a playground there. This is a place for recreation. This is not a place for an industrial water treatment plant.
Well, I suppose my question is a little related to the swimming pool, because the swimming pool is also treated with chemicals, as are all swimming pools.
Yes, I know that they are treated with.
And I'm not conscious that anybody thinks there's any great hazard or risk associated with that compared to the hazard.
Did you say?
I don't believe anybody is greatly concerned about the risk associated with the swimming pool. And I'm asking, I guess, do you think there is a greater hazard?
And there is a greater risk because the swimming pool only has the size. It only has a small amount of chemicals to treat it. We're talking about a treatment plant that, you know, goes to hundreds of homes. You know. So, you know, the quantity of stuff that goes for a water treatment plant is much greater than the quantity of chemicals that go to a swimming pool. And they have to go more frequently too when they're year round, because the swimming pool, you know.
Right, I think you've answered the question. I think you've given us a good challenge and plenty to think about. Thank you very much.
Thanks
for
very much, Karen.
presentation. I just double check. I don't believe that Norris is in the room, so we will move on to Ken Ryan. So, Ken's back is 138 to 139 on the agenda, or submission number 8. Please.
Just for those that don't know, I operate the campground as the lessee to the council, and I agree strongly that an industrial site isn't the appropriate place in a public situated public park. But what I would like to say is that when the initial pump was put in there on a temporary basis, that was enough that campers left early and they asked to be moved site, so it did impact business. And what you may not realise is there's over 10,000 visitor nights spent at the campground every year. So it is substantially the biggest accommodation provider in Greytown by a significant amount. So you'll be aware that when you pitch a tent for your summer holiday, you're hoping to have a nice experience in Greytown and enjoy the environs of the park, which everyone works on well, and it's a beautiful space. But with a tent, there's no barrier to sound. If you go down there, you'll always hear a sound. And so I'm here to both get into the front of your mind that this will impact the business. And now we're talking about moving the site that is made a little more permanent, much closer to the campground boundary, by 30 or 40 metres by my count. It's hard to work out on the map exactly where. And I've asked a couple of people and they're not exactly sure where the bores are going, but the bores are going to be running a lot of the 11,000 people in Greytown. So there is going to be noise. There's no getting away. And effectively, it's about, for me, it's just about a quiet enjoyment of the space as a public space and as a public park as it was intended. So I think the industrial application of trucks, workers, chemicals, and even noise that will affect the invariable noise that comes with all of that is going to affect things in that public space. It will change the face of that park for the people in the future, and I'm hoping that it won't have an impact on the campground, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case because there's always going to be noise. If you've been down there to listen to it, there is a noise, and it's certainly quieter at the moment when they put the pump underground, but I'm not sure if the pump is staying underground when they move it. And the open question is, why has it moved 3 times now? We've got the initial one, the initial movement of the pump to where it is, put it underground. Now we're moving it inside the swimming pool. Now it's outside the swimming pool. And so I'm just not sure we've got a finite answer to all of those things. But that's all I've got really. It's nice and simple. Thinking about the campground people.
Thank you. Maybe you've got some questions, but can't start with Councillor Olds. And go to-
Thanks very much, Ken. I'm just curious about the underground pump because I don't recall. So were you told that the pump has been placed under?
Initially I was not. The pump was above ground and there was a much higher noise.
So that's the motor of the pump was above ground.
Yes. And so
It's the air pump. It's the air pressurising pump. That's what Stefano.
Pressurisation. Yeah, okay, now I understand.
Yes, back with the noise a lot. So
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that. So that's an acceptable.
it is at the moment. Okay. So, but then when they move it 20 metres closer,
Yeah.
The noise is still going to be 20 metres closer, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, get what you mean.
Yeah, Ken, as I suspect the only directly impacted business side this, has there been any consultation with you or any discussions with you by Wellington Water as part of their ongoing process to get to this?
No.
So they haven't approached you at all?
No.
Questions for Ken this morning? I'll just have one, which is very simple. Would you support the bore being replaced in the park in any location? So I suppose is the concern that it's too close to the campground, or would you not support it anywhere in the park?
I am open to supporting them in the park, but it's at the moment the option is that every time there's an option, it's moving closer to the campground, closer to the campground. And it looks like there's going to be a bore right on the boundary of the campground lease, but that'll be 2 metres from where people have been camping for 100 years. So they've been camping for 100 years and now they're going to hear that noise. So it'll definitely impact on business. Hospitality is challenging enough, and now we're bringing the noise to the campus. Yeah, I hope that answers this question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Cheers.
Do we have
Colin.
Colin?
He's there.
Wonderful. Colin, would you like to join us? I'm not sure if you were here for my original explainer, but you do have 10 minutes. If you can spend 5 or 6 on your presentation, and then that gives time for the councillors to ask questions. We have read your written submission, so feel free to take that as read and expand.
Number, please.
And the page number for the fourth page is page 107.
117. Thank you.
When you're ready.
There's 3 reasons why I've taken interest in this consultation. Firstly, I live in Kurutawhiti Street opposite Bushwood. I live in the Royal Park. So we visit the park very often. And secondly, I've been involved in local government for over 50 years, not now, but I have been, starting as an engineering cadet and various roles, including a council chief executive, and also sitting as an elected councillor around this table here. Thirdly, I came to the Wairarapa 45 years ago to lead a groundwater investigation that was happening at that time. This was for the Wairarapa Catchment Board. It's about $500,000 involved. It's a lot of money back in 1980, and it was funded by central government. But it was run by the Catchment Board, and I had the responsibility of organising a team to investigate the Wairarapa Valley for groundwater potential. The desire was to increase the use of groundwater to provide water that was unable to come from the rivers for farming, for town use, etc. And what I learned from that is you can't put down a bore anywhere and just hope to get water. The aquifers in the Wairarapa are very complicated, possibly the most complicated ones in the country. They're not simple. You can put down a bore in one place and get a good supply of water. You can go a kilometre or two away and get nothing. A lot of that's to do with the earthquake activity that's happened over geological time. My local government experience kept telling me where possible, you should be going for the lowest long-term cost for anything. That's what the public appreciate, what they look for. But they've got to weigh up all the factors and decide if that's the best option. To me, in the situation, as I understand it, Memorial Park is the best option of the ones that have been presented. I appreciate that the park was originally purchased, set up as a memorial to soldiers, but the park, to me, should be used for wider benefits to the community. The reality is that we take friends and relatives down to the park. We talk about the plaques and the number of names on the plaques commemorating young men from this village surrounds died on the other side of the world. But to me, having a water supply bore and treatment facilities in the park or cricket ground or swimming pool or anything else doesn't detract from the significance of that recognition of those soldiers. I think it's very arbitrary to say you can do certain things there, like run a campground, whatever, but you can't put down a building. Present setup in the park is a bit of an eyesore. When it was just a bore there, it was okay, but then the treatment facilities added and it looks pretty scruffy. And I'll be pleased to see something more presentable happening there. And I don't have any specific ideas of where it should be located, but it shouldn't be too close to the actual plaques that commemorate the soldiers, in my view. In terms of funding, you've suggested a separate target rate for Greytown if you go for one of the other options. I would suggest that that's potentially a can of worms. If you did go for one of the options, you would have to have good reasons for doing that. And I don't see any reason why you should set up a separate targeted rate. South Warrap Council has had a common rate for 3 waters and for other things since soon after it was set up in 1989, and it was part of the new council at that stage trying to give lessen the parochialism that occurs between the different parts of the district, which unfortunately still exists to a degree today, but probably is not as bad as it was back in 1989. If you start a new approach to funding now, and it commits you to doing the same with the other towns in the future, and I would suggest that Featherston, for example, might be happy about that when it comes to wastewater solutions. I see that one or more of the other submitters have raised the question of storage. I don't fully understand how the interaction between the Woodside plant and the Memorial Park one operates. My impression is that you do have sufficient storage for the town in that sense, but you may not, so I just raised that. The last point I raised, which has nothing to do with your consultation, I'd love to see fluoridation in the water here, having had to spend a fortune on my teeth over the years.
Thank you, Colin. Do we have
Thanks,
any
Colin.
questions? Somebody else? We'll kick us off.
Colin, thank you for coming in. You've used the term wider benefits, and I just wanted to test where your boundary on that is, because we heard from the previous submitter her view on industrial chemical processes, which water treatment is effectively. So where's your boundary in terms of wider benefits? What's the line that you don't cross?
I'm not sure that I caught all your question, Councillor. My hearing's not great, actually, and I don't find this room very...
Okay, I'll try it again. So you used the term wider benefits, if that was the words you used. And I just want to know whether you have a line that you said that you don't cross in terms of wider benefits, because 2 presentations ago we heard about water being an industrial chemical process. Where is your boundary of what is a benefit for a memorial park. And so where's the line? Does that make sense?
I don't have any specific boundaries as such. I don't have a problem with water treatment facilities there myself. Being reasonably familiar with what goes on, there's all sorts of safeguards. As I said earlier, you either set aside the park as a memorial and nobody's allowed to do anything there, or you let people go there and run their dogs there and they watch cricket matches and they swim in the pool and they walk through the bush and whatever, or they have a camping ground there that they sleep in, whatever, and people have social functions at the sports pavilion. And I think it's very arbitrary if you have a boundary, and I don't see the park as being locked up and nobody can do a damn thing there.
Okay, I suppose all the examples you just gave then I would term recreational as opposed to industrial. So, and that's why I'm trying to, is there a line between the two?
But I don't see water supply as being an industrial point of view, pollution and, you know, if you like, smoke and dust. And
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Thanks. Thanks, Colin, for coming along. It's good to see someone with a bit of experience come and talk to us. You mentioned a bit about earthquakes. With your experience, with those bores being quite shallow, what would you think the chance of that bore disappearing, like the aquifer changing out of that spot in a fairly large earthquake?
that's in the lap of the gods to some extent. Look, I don't really know enough about the details of that, but I think that's just part of the risks of life.
Nice, yeah.
There's obviously
Much take.
major fault lines around this area, but not as far as I know of Memorial Park.
Oh, yeah.
It's just one of those potential risks that apply to life.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. Thank you. Awesome.
Lovely. If there's no further questions, thank you for your time. It's been great to hear from you this morning.
Thanks, Colin.
Sorry, our next presenter this morning is Rebecca Fox. Please come and join us.
Another former councillor.
Good morning, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us.
Rebecca.
10 minutes, full time, and we've got some questions.
Number, please.
The page number is 112 or submission number 47.
Well, good morning. I am Rebecca and I'm a long-term resident of Greytown and an interested community member. I have a background in public health, which includes the Diploma in Drinking Water Treatment and Assessment. I've worked in the water industry and I currently work in the civil construction sector. This is my individual submission. As I expressed in my written submission, I consider that Soldiers Memorial Park is the logical site for the establishment of additional bore and treatment, and that my view also is that funding of this development should be targeted, through a district targeted rate. Don't believe in regional board targeted rates for this. I've got concerns with the proposal as it is light on detail for a community to fully understand the issues. And while I understand that you are receiving advice from Wellington Water, there is very little experience around this governance table regarding water services and infrastructure and within council itself. As it is you that will be making the decision about the next steps for Greytown, there are some critical questions that you need to be asking to ensure that you land on an appropriate solution that benefits not only Greytown, but the wider community and all users of the water supply. The proposal is suggesting a bore somewhere in Memorial Park. Now this makes sense on the face of it, and there is existing infrastructure to connect into. But the current infrastructure is likely to need an upgrade for the new supply to be connected to. And you need to be clear around what the additional costings for that is going to be and how that will likely impact the proposal and the bottom line. Council also needs to consider storage. You simply cannot rely on underground water reticulation for storage. This proposal lacks appropriate design for a reservoir, and it doesn't, in my previous consideration in public health and as an elected member, I've spoken about additional storage being required. This supply needs additional storage. It's not considered, and you need to make sure it is in this proposal. Additional storage provides redundancy in the supply if there is a natural disaster, but it also provides redundancy if the supply is turned off for any reason, and we know that happens often. Additionally, there are treatment benefits for disinfection if there is storage as well. This can be either before the supply and the reservoir storage, or it can be post-storage. The current treatment installed at Memorial Park consists of pH adjustment and UV treatment. The supply itself does not do well with ramping up and down due to supply demand, and with no additional storage other than rubber bladders at the Waiahine site, the supply can be left vulnerable to flows or outages. Yes, I understand there is a control valve on Humphrey Street, but this is not without issues, and to have confidence in your public water supply, additional multiple measures are needed. If that valve fails, there are other issues that happen in the community as there is no other redundancy or supply. Lack of supply and drops in water pressure have both issues for public health and firefighting. In regard to public health, there could be backflow issues leading to bacterial introduction in the supply. Nothing puts a community in the spotlight more than a boil water notice and causes significant inconvenience to the community and business. There are assumptions that may be made about quality of water from a newly developed bore. There have been many instances in the Wairarapa where bores have been developed in close proximity to each other at the same depth, and they have quite different water characteristics. This has been just mentioned by the earlier speaker, Colin Wright. These are things which add to the cost of treatment, both in terms of location and plant requirements, and you have no assurity of supply from this either. So I would like to see Council increase the scope of the proposal to include additional storage of at least 48 hours. And this was what was considered to be good public health practice and probably will still be for a future state. I'd also like to Council to consider a realistic contingency which considers failure to find water at sufficient value and quality for the proposed new supply. So I don't see any of that in the proposal. And just very briefly, we did have a very good treatment system with the UF plant, which was multiple, now doesn't exist. Just in regard to noise from an industrial water plant, with good design, they can be very easily soundproof, so that shouldn't be an issue going forward. The pool at Memorial Park is already effectively an industrial site. I do not see that a water treatment plant would add anything to that. Just in regard to the previous speakers around fluoridation, fluoridation is a far more dangerous treatment chemical in a residential setting than what chlorine actually is as well, not to mention user handling. And fluoride, of course, is a neurotoxin. It's been confirmed as a neurotoxin. It sufficiently lowers IQ in young children, and it's been shown to have no statistical benefit if included in drinking water and consumed. It only has a benefit if it's applied topically, i.e. through a toothpaste. Happy to take any questions.
Rebecca? Any questions for Rebecca?
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for coming along. Talking about your storage, what would be your preferred option for a storage solution?
Oh, you'd need to construct a reservoir somewhere within somewhere.
Yeah.
Or you could actually construct a reservoir somewhere else within Greytown. There are sites that could be done, but I'm suggesting that you need to actually ask that question.
Yeah.
It
has been mentioned in meetings we have it has popped up from time to time. So, and fully agree with your fluoride comments. Thanks very much.
Well, when I worked in public health and I was a drinking water assessor for the region, I routinely spoke about increased storage capacity for all of the supplies in the Wairarapa. And South Wairarapa was extremely vulnerable at that time and still is because of that. And our network is ageing, and we only need something to go wrong in the network and we lose whatever limited storage is in that. My memory serves me correctly, it's less than 8 hours storage. So that's not acceptable for the community.
Thanks, Rebecca. And it's sort of along the lines of what he was talking about in terms of storage. And during your term on council, for instance, we increased storage capacity for Greytown and Featherston at Woodside. do you feel that that's not sufficient? That's a gravity fed storage. You don't,
Still inadequate.
it's still inadequate. Okay.
And
That's,
I did actually say that at the time.
okay.
I'll confirm that you did frequently.
Thanks, Rebecca.
So any final questions for? Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good, Rebecca, thank you.
Great.
Rebecca, can we get a copy, please?
Yes.
Probably can.
Next, presenters are Carmel and Peter from the Greytown Heritage Trust.
Number.
Page 260, submission number 100.
Two 60, was it?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. So as for our previous presenters, you have 10 minutes. We do ask that you spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes allowed. Amy will give you a wee signal when you've got 1 minute. Just, otherwise, please start when you are ready.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. I'm Peter Rowlands, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Greytown Heritage Trust. Accompanying me here is Carmel Ferguson, chairperson. We'd like to acknowledge your work in this project of securing reliable sources and healthy provision of water for Greytown. And we'd like to acknowledge your integrity in consulting with the community. You'll be aware that we've tabled a considered written submission with you. Presence here is to further underline our thinking and our positions relating to this future. Recently, the Heritage Trust has been a linchpin campaigner in the resistance to the Woolworths New Zealand plans to develop a site with vehicular access to Main Street. The successful opposition illustrates our commitment to both intelligently cherishing the past and developing the future of this town. The Heritage Trust is not driven by a notion of preserving Greytown and Aspic, but an intelligent planning and supporting development to safeguard the civic aesthetic and values of New Zealand's first purpose-planned inland town, a town that stands as unique and extraordinary for its built-in natural landscape in our country. We challenge this at our peril. Nibbling erosion of its environments and trees will radically alter that which underpins its economic viability. It'll erode what it is that the visitors come to the town for, the experience of history and the heritage ambience. Charm is very quickly lost. Water is critical to the life of any community. We all know that. Water is critical to the life of this town. The solution, however, in siting the bores and treatment plant lies not simply in expedient or transactional solutions. Economy is not simply financial. It's not simply planned or market functions. It's entwined in the cultural capital and the effective lives of citizens. Soldiers Memorial Park stands with its boulevard of lime trees as a significant war memorial, one of the most beautiful of any New Zealand small town that I personally know of. Over 18,000 New Zealand soldiers died in the war and most were buried in foreign lands. Te Ara notes that most New Zealanders knew at least one fallen soldier as a brother, a son or a friend. In the absence of a tomb close by, there was a need to remember the dead in the local community. This is our recognition of lives challenged and ended in circumstances and manners that are beyond most of our imagination or experience. It deserves respect, reverence and esteem. It's hard to find that in the company of a remaining water ball and an odd and species challenging planting of conifers in the name of camouflage. Such recognition doesn't feature wildly in the lines of war poets or the literature of anger and regret that followed the 1418 war. We're too fond of putting utilities in places simply because it's council land. The site is also the home of the swimming baths, which, although not a national architectural legacy, the bath building is a handsome and iconic modernist structure that relies strongly on symmetry. symmetry which is directly challenged by the odd presence of the boar in the foreground. We recognise that the thinking is that the treatment plant will move, yet there'll still be this odd municipal utility in the midst of a very considered setting. It's not one that the Heritage Trust considers appropriate. For those of you who know the Stone Store Basin in Kerikeri, you will know much of the surrounding infrastructure, including bridges, parking, wishing wells, has been cleared at enormous cost to give back the Stone Store and Kemp House their gravitas. Soldiers Memorial Park and the Greytown swimming baths, while not of the same national historic significance, deserves the same integrity and not a boulderized and compromised setting. For Greytown Heritage Trust, West Street also poses a challenge. Earmarked by at least 2 contributors to the district planned as potential commercial development site, it would creatively address the bane of small town New Zealand planning, or lack of, urban development. It would also, as a site, allow the town to condense its heart to a block of pedestrian and cycle-friendly shops and amenities. It won't do that with a bore and treatment plant in its midst. Even without the sensible ambition of concentrating the commercial precinct between Main, West, Kuratawhiti and Wood, siting the treatment plant and bores directly opposite the urban development of Farley Street and beyond is not an elegant solution. We recognise that other sites have been considered and found wanting. It would be useful to have greater clarity about their shortfall. We recognise the financial implications of any decision for the residents of the town. We implore the council to offer greater detail of what that investment might mean in actual demands of ratepayers. Unwieldy figures in their millions may not translate so alarmingly across annual household fees. We need that granularity. The decision about water needs to be sophisticated. It needs to meet the critical needs of sustenance for residents, but it also needs to nurture the character and history of an exceptional small town. A prosaic decision, expedient and populist, isn't necessarily a great legacy for future generations of Greytown people. Kia ora.
Questions?
Thanks very much for your presentation. I'm just a little curious whether or not you have a preferred site in mind, or because there's nothing specific in your submission that has a preference to any one of the sites that's proposed.
Of the existing proposal of the 3 sites?
Yes.
Our preference would be for the new site on Kuratawhiti.
On Kuratawhiti Street, yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Very thorough presentation. No further questions? Thank you very much.
Sorry, one question. One question, in regards to your answer then. So new site preferred on Kuratawhiti Street, regardless of cost?
Look, the cost is never regardless. I think it's easy to fan the cost so that it causes anxiety. You know, sums of millions broken down across years and across households may be of a different order, and that's why we're saying we just need greater granularity in those figures.
Yes, but you acknowledge that a new site under the proposal, that it is the most expensive because of all, not only do you have to buy the land, but all the connection pipes that would
absolutely
do that. Okay.
But the point is also that the cost is not simply economic. It's also cultural. It's also aesthetic.
Must be paid.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Moves us on to our first online presentation of the morning. Peter, I believe so Peter's presentation submission, at page 101, submission number 42. So, as with our previous minutes, Peter, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Give you away when you're at 9, but if you could leave us some time to ask your questions.
Thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah, we've just, by the way, it's been a little bit hard to hear you online, but generally it's been okay. Firstly, also it's been good to hear the other people ahead of time, and I think you're obviously very lucky to have a few submitters who have had some good experience, and they've raised some issues that I probably hadn't particularly thought about, which brings me to the, if you like, the tick the box arrangement of this submission process, that we were really only, if you like, offered with choose between these 3 new sites for a bore, but clearly other speakers have raised issues about how effective a bore might be in another place in terms of the reliability of the aquifer, the lack of storage. These things were not really part, if you like, of the submission wider brief. And I do wonder how the brief was put to the Wellington Water, you know, were they asked to just find another bore or what the bigger picture might be. So having listened to this so far, perhaps, you know, the views widened, if you like, in terms of the parameters of what you have to consider. So I'll perhaps deal with, I think, the simple things first, and one is the funding. I think the funding needs to follow the status quo. To do otherwise is really would be unfair, and like I think someone else already said, a can of worms. You've either got a policy on funding or you haven't, and clearly you have, and I think you should stick to it. In terms of the suitability of this particular site, or at least of the Soldiers Memorial Park, my own feeling is that it seems that by the time the memorials for World War II came around, they tended to be for public good. I was brought up in Wanganui. We had a war memorial hall. Greytown has a war memorial swimming pool, and I guess that was much better than, if you like, a cenotaph, in terms of some good came out of something that was clearly for many people very bad. So I don't feel having it in the park itself is disrespectful. I think that probably many of those older soldiers were very practical people, and clearly there was no disrespect by having camping grounds or swimming pools, or if you like. And I think that the water supply idea is in that same camp as a public good. And as long as it's done well and you mitigate any effects that could arise, for example, the noise issue that was brought by the manager of the motor camp, I hadn't thought about that particularly, but I'm sure that could be mitigated. So in terms of the 3 options put to us, I still think the one in Soldiers Memorial Park, you know, the aquifer works there, number one. You've got a much better idea of what the costs are going to be, and much less likelihood of an overrun. And just as importantly, it's much quicker. And we've been told that what you've got there is at risk of failure any time. So do you really want to go out potentially 3 to 5 years to get an alternative? So the timeline's important, and we've got no problem with the suitability. Affordability is, I take the last speaker's point that it's not the only thing that matters in these things, but the rates are now very expensive and not likely to get any better. Our rate's now close to what we would spend on food in a week. And we can afford to pay those rates, but I imagine for many people in these small Wairarapa towns, the rate's becoming a really serious issue, and some people may very well have to move because it's unaffordable. So I think probably the affordability goes a bit higher up the ranking than it may have done in the past, just when it's put into context of all the other expenses that clearly have to be paid for. So if we have to choose between one of these 3 options, unless there's a very good reason to do otherwise, you clearly should go for the quickest and the cheapest and the most reliable. Having said that, listening to this today, clearly the storage is an issue as well. And, you know, I think you've got 2 issues here. You've got the reliability of supply of the actual supplies themselves from the river, from the aquifer, but you've also got the reliability of the infrastructure that brings it to the places in terms of if there's earthquakes, flooding, all the things that could interrupt those supplies. And I suppose a smart move is to have at least 2 suppliers and some storage. But the storage has not been part of this proposal. So I think that's pretty well what I'd like to cover. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter. Have we got any questions, Peter, this morning, please? Very clear presentation. Very good. Thank you for your time, joining us online and watching the previous presenters.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless I am mistaken, don't have Andy with us either online or in the room. We have Michael Hewison with us this morning.
He's not, no, it's definitely coming. He told me he was supposed to be here at 12:45.
You able to get in touch with the final three presenters on the list? No. Do we need to take an adjournment?
Warren Wood just said he can't be here till 12:45 either. It's time he said.
So we'll need to take an adjournment, have lunch and feedback. Thank you, everyone.